Oh, hello, and welcome to the Real Estate Baller Show. We have an exciting guest joining us today. I am thrilled to introduce Rita Tower, a seasoned real estate investor with 10 years of experience. Rita has achieved an excellent closing ratio and has become a true expert at rehabbing. What sets her apart is the unique ability to build rapport while accurately estimating the repairs during the buyer appointment. So today, Rita will share her valuable insights, strategies, and her best kept secrets to help you succeed in the real estate investing world. Let's dive right in. Okay, so today we got Rita in the house. So Rita, where are you out of?
I am originally from Phoenix, but I do my business in Houston, Texas.
How long have you been in real estate?
I have been a HomeVestor. I own a HomeVestor franchise, so I've been a HomeVestor for 10 years, I believe, if you can believe that. And I've been flipping houses for about 13 years, I guess, 12 to 13. I was doing it on my own for a few years before I decided to buy the franchise. And once I bought the franchise, I've not looked back.
Well, that's amazing. I know that every time I need a question, I have questions on rehabbing, what to do with certain things, I'll go to Rita. I'd say you probably have done a couple hundreds of rehabs by now?
I have my rehab card. I've got my rehab card. I managed to actually, last year I had 50% of the properties that I sold were properties that I sold retail. So I rehabbed 50%, and then inventory gets too high. I'll keep an eye on my inventory. I can do multiple rehabs, obviously, at one time, but I don't like to have too many going because it really takes my eye off the ball in other arenas, and I learned that the hard way. I also dabbled in the high-end market rehabbing. And I thought at one point, that would be my calling because I do put out a nice product. I think that's very important. And I saw myself doing some very nice, multi-million-dollar homes with a $1 million rehab, and it didn't go as planned. And when things go wrong in that environment, they go really wrong. And so I decided that wasn't for me. So there are different aspects of the rehabbing business that you can also choose to do. You can do a lighter rehab, and then of course a heavier rehab with your average retail value, and then the higher end rehab market. Different markets.
So from the smallest to largest, what's your budget of rehabs that you've done from the smallest to largest?
I can knock out a little bit of lipstick for about 18 to 20 on a smaller square foot home if we're just going to paint it, flooring, granite, things like that. Nowadays, it's a little harder for me to get it at that 20 mark. If we're doing, foundation, roof, etc., we're in a 40 to 50, ballpark. 35 to 50, let's say, if we're doing foundation, roof, things like that. And then I've put 120 into a rehab before, numerous times for 120. But I don't like to stay there. I do not like to. I will say that is. The profit margin needs to be really, really good if I'm going to spend that much time on a rehab.
Yeah, 120 is a big budget. I remember I've done that on a flooded house one time, and I'll tell you what, it was not easy.
It's not easy, and where I end up spending. The numerous times that I've done that big of a rehab, that's all your regulars, your roof, your windows. It's a newer home. You're essentially building a newer home. We've removed walls, but I'll tell you what gets you is that concrete. You're doing a lot of these homes in, Westbury, for instance, and the vast majority of those driveways, of those detached garages, they all have the cracked concrete, and that will eat up easily 15 grand, easily of your budget. And I'd rather put that money into the home So, things can get away from you pretty quickly if you're in that rehab. When we talk about a rehab that large, where things tend to get away from you when you're doing a rehab that large is the time, because now you're relying on many more trades than just your average $40,000 rehab. And you're having to do so many more things, and the time it takes to do that, you just have to consider that time that you're holding this and putting money out, that type of money, that's a big deal. So not only do you have a large number on your rehab, but you better factor in your holding costs as well, because they're going to be substantially higher, because it's a lot more difficult to do the 21-day rehab, which I've gone over with you guys before. You can't turn this one out in 21 days.
Okay, so you are in a very unique operations, your own operations. And because you also go on the by appointment, right? So you manage your rehab, your renovations, and you also go on your by appointment. Would you agree with me that the rehab, the budget, the planning starts at the by appointment?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about that secret sauce that you got. You there, you got an hour, you're trying to build rapport with the seller, and then you're trying to look at all the repairs so that you make sure you don't miss anything. What's your secret? How do you do it?
Well, I will say this. As far as my secret goes, I don't really get into, it's going to seem like I do from some of the things that I say, but I have I'll walk into a home, I'll know my numbers inside and out. I also know ballpark within $3,000 what it's going to cost me to do what I need to do to this home, just from kind of being there, right? But I want to strike that balance between letting the seller know that I'm aware of some of these things that are going to need replaced. They're going to need to be replaced or fixed, whatever the case. But we spend my time at an appointment, I would say 15% to 20% based on how the appointment's going on the house. So that's a very small percentage of time spent on the house. We don't start walking that property until I'm trying to figure out what it is they need from me. How can I best help them? And that takes a minute to get into, because I've done a lot of rehabs. I don't need to use apps. I don't need to put repair numbers in. I don't need to count doorknobs. And if you're doing this in an appointment, you're not going to get that deal.
Okay, so let me just clarify on it. So an average length of an appointment is about an hour, 60 minutes.
Yes.
And you're there for about an hour. And you just said you only used about 15 to 20 minutes to walk through the house and decide how much money you're going to spend. I'm sorry for this interruption. I've been asked a lot about passive investment. And let's be real, there is nothing passive about being a landlord unless you have a really good property management company. So if you own an Airbnb or a short-term rental and you want to get back your time, please give our team at Buzz Vacation Rental a call at 281-549-8432 or go to our website at pm.buzzvacationrentals.com. Now back to the Real Estate Ballers show.
No, I said 15 to 20%. So now that you're throwing out a 60-minute appointment, you do the math on this. I would say we spend 10 minutes going through that house. 10 minutes. So is that 20%?
Yeah. Okay? Your math is better than mine. I'm always a little bit off.
I can't even figure that out. So, but yeah, I would say for an hour appointment, I'm gonna try to find out what they need from me, how I can best help them, and really hope that how I can best help them works for me as well. And then let's take a look at the house. And a lot of the number one thing that I'm looking at while I'm there, and I've already done this as I enter the home, I'm looking at the layout, because a good layout, if I can create an updated, more open, without having to do a lot of, tearing down walls, if it's already done for me, if it's already somewhat of an open layout, I mean, I'm knowing that when I do the rest, when I put my rehab on it, when I put my lipstick on it, so to speak, I'm going to have a really good product. And what I've also looked at is what I can get for the property at the end of the day. And it's based a lot on that layout. So I'm going to put out a nice rehab. My selections, my tile selections, my vinyl selections, all of that going to be good to go. But the layout is really important as well. So I've noticed that. I've noticed I don't have to do much to this layout to bring it up to date. And then we'll go through the home, and we'll spend about 10 minutes going through the home. And I have a flashlight with me every single time, because I'm going to ask you if you've ever gotten foundation repair done on this home. And then I'm going to hit the cracks with my flashlight, because I don't want to, you tell me, no, it doesn't need it. No, it's fine. It's, fine. Houses settle.
House just been leaning one way, but it doesn't need any foundation repairs, right?
Fine. It is fine. Maybe they had someone out a while ago and they said it was fine. Well, I don't really want to call them on that lie. I just want to shine my flashlight on and let them know I see these cracks. And same thing with anything on the ceiling, just whatever. I want to look underneath of the cabinets, see if we're running the galvanized. I want to see what the valves look like. Some of those things, my plumber probably gets paid the most of all of my trades. I would definitely have to say that's true. I mean, those valves, if you're replacing just valves in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, it just gets expensive, and you're just tacking on, and then you're writing your plumber a check for $5,000 because new water heater, and that's just a way to make sure you know what your costs are. You got to see what kind of plumbing you're running. And I know we touched on this before. I do poke my head up into that attic. I want to know, if I drive up to a home and I know unequivocally it needs a new roof. It needs a new roof. There's no chance this doesn't need a new roof. But I don't want to get hit on $3,000 in decking to get replaced.
Right.
If I miss that. And so I know it needs a new roof. So there's my number. I throw my number out at my roof. Boom. I know how much my roof is going to cost, ballparking it. But again, I'm not taking square footage and multiplying the squares that are going to be needed for the roof based on the square footage of the home. I'm not doing that. I do recommend you do it if you're newer to the rehabbing industry, but I just don't need to do that. I've done enough rehabs to know when I walk up, this rehab's going to cost me $50. This rehab's going to cost me $42. But what I do want to know is I don't want to turn a $8,000 roof into a $12,000 roof. And I want to make sure that if I have to replace all the plumbing in this thing, that's an extra expense that I wasn't quite expecting. And then lo and behold, I pop my little head up into that attic, and I'm not, there are a few things up there. Let's take a little accounting as to when you get up in that roof. You're looking at your decking on the roof, right? So if you haven't accounted for decking and you see that there's a lot of decking that needs to be replaced, you're glad you popped your head up into that roof. There is also your galvanized pipe. And so when you pop your head up into that attic, how many people had frozen pipes during our freeze? And you look up there, and then sometimes you see all this patchwork up there.
Yeah.
You're going to have to replace that to get it through an inspection when you go retail. So maybe if I never would have stuck my head up in there, I would not have known that. And then one of the last things that can cost you around $1,000, $1,200, whatever it is, depending on the size of the home, I want to see that ductwork up there. I can ask the seller about the furnace. I can get the year of the condenser on the outside. I want to put my eyes on that stuff. And And I also come across as an actual buyer because I am an actual buyer. I'm going to close on this. I'm not just going to go try to shop the deal and then back out if something comes up. I mean, and if I'm the buyer, if I'm going to close and I'm going to put my money on this property, I need to know those things. So yeah, I don't spend long, as we've already established. I'm looking at this house for a good 10 whole minutes, but 3 minutes I pop my head up into that attic for sure.
So do you have like a sheet? Do you, use freestyle paper? You write your own notes? How do you make sure you don't miss these things?
I write a lot of notes as I'm going through. I'm taking notes with what I need to do on the house, what's in really rough shape, what possibly could get by. I'll write the year of the hot water heater, of the HVAC, of the ducts. Ducts are fine. A very common thing that I write in my notes is foundation not showing too much evidence, but I need to get it checked out. Or foundation needs it. Foundation needs it. And so when I go back in my notes, I know I'm doing this needs foundation repair.
So you don't have a pre-typed sheet with the list of things? You just freestyle?
I wish I did. You're making me sound very inadequate here. I know they're out there. I've seen them before. I suggest if they work for you to use it. But again, I am really focused on the seller.
It's only because you've done it for so long, right? I mean, so you know exactly
Absolutely.
what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And here is something that I do that is a little more along the lines of what you're suggesting. In my notes, I will do, if it's pretty much just a lipstick, right? I'll have my square footage. I know exactly what I pay for square footage for paint. I know exactly what I pay per square footage for flooring. Things like that. I know exactly what it costs me to remove a tub and put a stand-up shower in there. I know those numbers like the back of my hand. And then when I go with my contractor and we're doing these numbers, it's pretty much the same number, or this per square foot for this. And when I'm running my numbers to give my offer, sometimes on occasion I will do that. I know exactly how much my 3-piece appliance package is. So I'll throw in appliances, granite. That's a little more of a ballpark because I'm not measuring their counters. Right. That's not what we're talking about while I'm in there. But I'll put, the granite, the paint, the flooring, and I have price per square foot for pretty much all of that. And if I need to do a new shower, I know within a few hundred, for sure within $500, what that's going to cost me. I will line out those particular things. And so then I'll end up with an $18,000 number on just that lipstick. I'm going to throw an extra $2,000 in there because I have to replace all the faucets, the fixtures. If you replace granite, you don't just add the cost of the granite and the granite labor. Now you've got that plumber in there and you've got new fixtures going on that granite. So it's not just granite. So I'll throw an extra $2,000 on that, some landscaping, done.
Okay, so do you have a sequence that you follow? Like, do you start from the outside, go inside, do you go inside, outside? Like, do you have a sequence of when you walk the property with the seller? Hey, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.
I don't have a sequence when I walk the property with the seller. I just kind of let them show me the house however they want to show me the house. And again, we're talking about other things as we're going through. And I have a sequence after I buy it, though, for sure.
Let me take you back to the appointment just a little bit more.
Sure.
On this appointment, do you already have a vision, like every house you walk into, do you have a vision? Because, you said you're only there within that 10 minutes, you got to decide what you got to do with the property. At that moment, you already form a vision of what this property will look like when it's finished. And how do you base that on? Like, how do you decide this floor is okay to keep? This carpet is okay to keep? Is it just because of the age factor, or does it have to do with other property in the area? Like, do you look at the other properties and see what's done so you can decide what to do with yours before you go to the appointment?
Those are great questions because yes, and all of that is the answer to all of that is yes. So to start out with, when I walk inside of a home, it is second nature to me. I can't get away from it. I'm automatically, from the time I get into that home, looking at what I would do with this property. And there are some times where I know I'm definitely going to do the rehab on this. Again, from what my inventory looks like, what my cash position is, all of those things. That's all a factor. How many rehabs I have going, what size of a rehab I'm looking at doing. So let's say it checks all the boxes. I'm excited about this rehab, and it's someone, this house has been in the family for a very long time. Those are my favorite. I mean, I enjoy what I do. And when I can turn a family home back into its, I say that I'm bringing it back to its former glory. Like, those are my favorite. So I'm absolutely, from the time my feet hit the floor inside, I'm looking at what I'm going to do with the property. And as we're talking, I'm looking at this kitchen layout. But also keep in mind, I don't rehab the majority of my rehabs. I'm not rearranging stuff. I'm keeping it as is. I would say it's not even 50% that I'm removing walls, etc. I'm thinking, I'm going to put this here, a big one, a really big one, especially if I'm able to put cabinets. If I can put some 36 cabinets, I wouldn't really do a 42 unless it's a higher price range. But I'm already looking when I walk inside that they have 32 cabinets, 32-inch cabinets in there. There's a space above these cabinets because it's an 8-foot ceiling. Well, their microwave is sitting on the counter. Who likes that, V?
Nobody.
Who likes a countertop microwave to take away countertop space?
Yeah, they golden.
In a small kitchen. I mean, so I know what I want to do for this kitchen. It can be as easy as this. Put some 36 inches in here cabinets, put them all the way to the ceiling with some crown. Then I can put my microwave above my range, and I've just changed the kitchen, right? It can be as simple as that. It can be as simple as that. Or I can remove this wall, put the refrigerator over here, run a water line. Well, now, again, it's money. So it's what is your budget? And then let's go back, which was, here's how you decide that. And this is super important. And this was taught to me by a guy very, very good in the business. And we were going over comps one time, and my windows in this house, they were double pane, but they had mold in, original to the house. The windows were horrible. Like, it was bad. I, in my opinion, needed new windows because these weren't great. And we're running through these comps, and he says to me, of all of these comps, do any of them have new windows? And the answer was no. And that was the last time I ever got that wrong. So yes, I study those comps. I look to see what those other comps have. And if I'm in Westbury and I want to get, $420 for a house, I better be on point. Everything at the $420 has that new driveway. They have those new windows. If I'm in in a spring neighborhood and I want to get $275, $300 for the house, do I need new windows? Well, I've got 5 comps here that suggest I don't need new windows. So I don't just throw windows in. That really depends on what the comps say. And you can just use that as a rule of thumb while looking at other things, right? Does it need a new roof? Do the other comps, how old is my roof? And absolutely, what do these comps have? And if they have that, then I'm going to need to have it too if I want that price. But I'm going to study those comparables, and I'm probably going to take a little more time on it than a lot of people.
Okay. So then the next question would be, you said earlier that you have an estimate for an area. So give us a range of how do you estimate the kitchen? Because it's not like you measuring the linear foot of the countertop, the cabinets, So how do you estimate a kitchen, what it's going to cost?
Because I know the cost of my cabinets. I've put in, so I know that I'm getting cabinets for this size kitchen. And I know I'm not getting out of it for less than $3,200 for the material, right? And so I'll ballpark it. And if I'm doing my kitchen cabinets, chances are the vanities are not great. So, I'm putting builder grade shaker cabinets in my home. And it definitely, that's a great question again, because yeah, they can sneak up on you a little bit, so that you needed a few more cabinets than you really realized when you were in there. And now you're paying 46 for cabinets, and you budgeted 35 for cabinets, but the material alone now is 46. How do I know this? Well, it happened to me 6 months ago. Another thing, I've broken even on one property and I've lost money on one property. And one of the property that I broke even on, I had to do 2 price reductions that hit me. This was quite a few years ago, and it wouldn't sell. But another thing that hit me, you wouldn't even believe, I always put blinds in my home. This house had so many windows that I ended up paying something like $2,600 for
Oh my God.
blinds.
For blinds.
Because some of the windows were they were more than 71 inches. So are you going in and putting, the 35-inch blind and setting it up? The price point on the home was not such that I could do that. It was $2,600 for blinds. And, I broke even on that property. So I budgeted $1,000. And it's crazy, because sometimes if you have higher square footage, people are like, oh, I've got 3 bathrooms. All that means to me is extra money spent. 3 bathrooms. They're touting it. The seller is like, this is a bonus. And I'm thinking, 3 showers I have to tile. 3 toilets I have to replace. But if I could say one thing about it, so you're going to get hit. I'm going to get hit. I just got hit on $1,000 over what I thought I would be spending on cabinets. And I've done loads of rehabs. So it's going to happen. And, like I said as well, little things that you just don't kind of think about, where this is how much I have for blinds, and all of a sudden way more windows than I anticipated. And I saw them when I walked in, but it never occurred to me. So that's going to happen. But as long as you understand and you have your numbers right, because you can ask me pretty much a repair number on most things in a house, and I'm going to come within a few $100s of the actual cost. And I know exactly what I can spend on my faucets. I know exactly what I can spend on my price per square foot for tile. And if you don't know those costs, you'll get into a little bit of trouble rehabbing. That was one of the very first things that I did. And I was lucky. I got into this rehabbing I wouldn't say by accident, but when I very first started doing properties, I had a project manager who taught me how to rehab a house. Now, he wasn't great at understanding the numbers, but he was a tremendous rehabber. He had excellent taste, and he could squeeze a dollar for sure. And I learned a lot. We worked together for about 2 years, and we kind of parted ways right when I bought my franchise, my HomeVestor franchise. But I learned so much from him. And as quickly as you can, know your numbers. Not your ARVs, not your closing costs, not your cost of your money, not your ROI, all of those very important numbers as well. But know the cost of your tile. Because I tell people, you can put out a nice product. Anybody can put out a super nice home and very nice product. But can you do it within that budget? And if you don't know how much you're spending per square foot for tile, how much you're spending for this, costs will just run away. They'll run away on you.
I used to be at $450 a square foot. I think now I'm at $650 for tile now.
For what?
Tile.
For the install, or for the material and install?
It's finished. It's
Putting
crazy.
some nice tile in there.
Well, I'm doing LVP mostly now. I don't do tile much anymore.
I do also. I've been doing LVP in the bathrooms. And I can get that LVP for, well, let's do the math. I can get that LVP for, I think right now, $1.25 less per square foot than my tile. And I used to put tile in my bathrooms, but now that we've got this LVP, it's one less trade because they're putting it across, throughout the home. And if they're throwing it, if it looks good and it fits those bathrooms, I'm doing that as well. And it's cheaper than the tile. And so if it looks good, then it's perfect.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you another little story about that. I was also walking a house with this person who shall go nameless, very good at what he does.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I had to stop at a project before we were, going to go get a coffee or walk a house. I don't remember what it was, but we had to stop at one of my projects. So it's the first time he had ever been at one of my projects. And he says, oh, can't wait to go see how it's done, essentially, whatever. So we get there and we're looking at some of these finishes. And all of my finishes, I will say, are the same. I don't redo things. I'm using the same LVP. I'm using the same backsplash.
Me too.
And we have levels, right? We have 1 and 2 level, right? So if it's a level 1, it's this backsplash, et cetera, because I am not going around looking for different finishes all the time. That's not how that works. But we were at a period where we went in and it was, these are your choices for LVP. Which one are you liking? And it was, I think that's what I was doing there. I was going to look at these choices and see which one we were going to start using, because LVP was just kind of coming on the market.
Yeah. And
this person who puts me to shame in the amount of business that he does, I said, which one do you prefer? Which one do you like? And he just plain as day said, I don't think it matters. And I looked at him and I said, you're an idiot. Of course it matters. Of course it matters. He didn't see it. And we've talked about, we've talked about Eddie Gant not knowing the difference between a wood or an oil base and a water base paint. He has someone that does that for him, but I'm actually the rehabber, and I'm here to tell you, your finishes matter. They matter because when your home hits that market, you want it to sell quickly. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, it matters. So you want, and if you're not good, if you don't have a flair for design or color palette, and you're looking at so many pictures online, you can study it that way, get good at it that way. But if you just don't have a flair for design at all, hire someone to set your colors, to set your product up, so that you don't have to worry about that. And you can then put out a nice product, because rehabbing, there's a lot involved in it. But at the end of the day, does your house fly off the shelf? And does it fly off the shelf for some of the highest per square foot price in the neighborhood? Yeah, mine does. For whatever that's worth. Know your numbers.
So speaking of paint, do you use oil base or flat, or what do you use?
We use now you're getting into something I might not know a lot about, because that is my painter's responsibility. And I use the eggshell on the walls, although, the flat paint had its day, but I think I want to do what is most pleasing to the most number of people. And I don't want to put something in that a select few people are going to appreciate. I want to put out a nice product, but I don't want to get carried away with some paint scheme. And, I see a lot of pictures. I was just studying comparables before this call, actually, for my appointment tomorrow. And I came across a house where they did all the lower cabinets a different color than the upper cabinets, and the island. I know island can come in a different. Don't get too fancy if you don't know what you're doing, is my takeaway on that.
See, I don't have a flair for design, and I don't care for design. So I stick to the same thing all the time. My classic, timeless white stuff.
Yep, it works.
White cabinets, white countertop, white cord if it's more expensive house, and some variation of white granite if it's a cheaper house.
Yep, I agree. That being said, I have the same color palette, and I'll tell you also, I did switch my designs. I want to say, gosh, has it been maybe 5 years? because it was all the, if you go back to the 8 to 10 year mark, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, travertine, the stone backsplash, with these different types of granite. You got your Baltic browns that everyone, so travertine, big time in these homes. Then we started switching to the gray palettes. Now I really like what they're doing with the white, especially on the outside of homes.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be a rehabber, I do suggest you either hire someone that does that for you, or take your time with it, because it was at a point where we did have a few rehabs going, but I had tile selections all in my budget, right? From every place, all laid out, pallets, just like you see designers do. And you get that done. Get that done so you're not picking that stuff while you're rehabbing. You want to be a rehabbing machine. You're not going into a property saying, I think this backsplash would look good here. You got your palette, and it's progressing with the times. I'm not putting, travertine backsplash in anymore. We're not doing this. I don't study it probably as much as someone that would rehab higher end market. I have a few friends of mine that rehab in that higher end.
When you say higher end, you're talking about 500 and above, or we're talking about a million and above
Yes.
here?
Well, I have a couple friends that do both. I have a friend who he does $1 million rehab in River Oaks. Buys a $2.5 million home, throws $1 million rehab into it, and sells it for $7 million. It's not my game. That's just not my game. But he does very well at it. And then I have a couple of rehabbers who I've met throughout the period of my career, and they do $150,000, $120,000, $150,000 rehab in Westbury, for a lack of it, because all of those homes have been redone nicely. And he'll do a $140,000 rehab in there. Just beautiful rehab. And he'll get what he's asking for it. So again, not my game. I thought it was. I tried it out, and it was the worst year of my career thus far. It was the time spent on that rehab, and just, in the business that we're in and being a HomeVestor, that's not our target market. And so I had to kind of switch strategies. That's another thing. If you realize something isn't working, make an adjustment and adjust your business sooner rather than later.
So as we are wrapping up, I want to end on a positive note. You've done a lot of rehabs. Let's share your favorite rehab that you ever done, your most proud baby product that you turned out.
Well, I still own that house.
You like it so much you keep it? You collect it?
No, not at all. I couldn't get what what I needed for that house for it to make sense. That's one of the ones. And we redid everything. And the seller was a super nice woman who moved into that home to take care of her mother. And when her mother passed, she sold it to me, and we did everything to it. And it was that project where I thought, pretty good at this. Like, this is a nice, this house will go up to these other homes, and it just, I couldn't get what I needed for it. So I still own it to this day, and it's going to work out, but in the long run. So like I said, my favorites are to go in. It's been a family home for a while, and then, shoot that family some pictures when I'm done, because at the end of the day, I do enjoy what I do for a living, and I develop these relationships. Not everyone, of course, but, a handful of these sellers. I do exactly what I say I'm going to do for them, and I'm happy to show them the product at the end of the day, and they get excited, and, So yeah, it was a beautiful home. We took out walls and custom cabinets throughout, custom cabinetry. Learned a lot on that deal. Beautiful home, beautiful rehab. But I did also got real tricky with the tile work, patterns, and don't do it, people. Don't do it.
I learned that This happened with my rentals, right? My vacation rental, where I feel like I need to get a little bit fancy and trendy and blah, blah, blah. I
Trendy.
always went over budget, you know, and then I ended up sticking to my just timeless pattern
Yep.
because
Yep.
I just I can't stand things being different. If that make any sense. I'm not a good interior designer at all.
You also run the risk of it not being popular
Yeah.
in a year, or it's trendy now, and then it doesn't look so good later, and so
Yeah.
you do run that risk. And you also, in our business, if you're doing any sort of volume with this, you just have to keep an eye on those numbers, because you always have to say to yourself, anyone can put out a great rehab. Truly, a lot of people, with all the shows on TV, like, there are a lot of people that can put out a great product, but not a lot of people that can do it within those number constraints. And
Yep.
that's where you start making some money, and you have to find that balance.
All right. I'm definitely going to bring you back for a sequel here.
I'd be happy to come
But
back. We can talk about anything.
before I let you go, I'm sure the audience love what you share so far and probably want to get to know you better. How do they
Okay.
get in touch with you?
Well, Rita.Tower@HomeVestors.com is going to be the best way to get in touch with me. Shoot me an email, and let's do some deals. Ask me some questions. I'm here to help. I'm a firm believer in what goes around comes around. So anyone that would have any questions, I'd be happy to help. But don't come to me with any questions if you don't already know numbers, because that's the number one thing. And I said it here today. If you're looking at becoming a rehabber, looking at getting into this, and doing a decent amount of volume, I want you to tell me what you spend on your tile. I want you to tell me how much it costs to install a hot water heater. I want you to be able to tell me what your cost for your kitchen faucet is, like this. And once you're able to do that, you'll be okay.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode with Rita Tower. We hope you gain valuable insights and practical tips that you can apply to your own real estate ventures. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future episodes featuring more industry experts and insightful discussions. And feel free to leave comments or questions down below, as we love hearing from you. Until next time, keep hustling and making waves in the real estate world. This is Vili, signing off from the Real Estate Baller Show. Stay motivated, stay ambitious, and keep reaching for your dreams, my friend. See you soon.